It is a huge, huge, huge honor for me to be interviewing today David Moffet, BDS, Bachelor of Dental Surgery. Are you in Sydney, Australia, or Melbourne?
I'm in Sydney, Australia.
You're in Sydney, Australia, where my brother lives. My brother moved there a year ago, and he moved there from Kansas, and he lived in Kansas with a car. Now he's in Sydney, doesn't even own a car. I flew down there last year when he moved down there with a couple of my sons, and oh my God, we had a blast. And right now it's 1 p.m. on a Tuesday, and I'm interviewing you where it is Wednesday morning at 6 a.m. So thank you for getting up early and seeing me. And I get to see you next Monday because I'm flying down there to do a lecture in Sydney, Melbourne, and is it Perth?
Brisbane.
Brisbane. Oh, Brisbane. Oh, which is Gold Coast.
Yes.
Is Brisbane Gold Coast, or am I confusing the two?
Yeah, they're two towns. Gold Coast about an hour out of Brisbane, but they're part of Queensland.
Queensland. Yeah, and I want to go there. So there's three things I want to do when I go to Australia. I've lectured there 3 or 4 times, and I've never climbed the highest mountain in Australia. So I'm going to do that this trip with Jeffrey Knight. And I've never made it up to Darwin and seen the Great Barrier Reef.
So you're going to go and see the Great Barrier Reef?
No, not on this trip, but I want to. Is Darwin the best city to see the Great Barrier Reef?
No, Cairns.
Cairns. Okay, that's Kaines.
No, Cairns.
How far is Brisbane from Cairns?
A long way. About 4-hour flight.
4 hour flight. My goal is to be eaten by a great white shark. That's, as a dentist, I should be eaten by something that has the biggest, boldest teeth. So I so wanted to podcast interview you because you have a smash hit book out, the Big Yellow Book. You can't throw a dental impression without hitting your book on social media. I see it behind you right there,
yes.
to the left of you, right by
my heart as well.
Hold it up to the camera so they can see it. How to build the dental practice of your dreams without killing yourself in less than 60 days. So I'm hoping that you turn that into an online CE course someday. I think you could sell some books there too. You can even make it to where if you buy the course, you get the book or whatever. But so tell us what made you write this book, and what is the gist of your book?
Well, I guess the book is really the story of my life's journey to this point, Howard. So it's not so much that it's instructional. There is instruction in there, lots of tips, but it's pretty autobiographical as well. So it tells my struggle through school and through dental school, and then my struggle in finding employment, and then finding the right employment, and then my struggles in setting up my practice on my own without any real business education. You know, all the business education that I had, I learned along the way, picking it up from other people in business outside of dentistry, not so much from dentists as being businessmen, but I was able to apply that to what I did in building my practice, and build a very successful practice in a working class part of Sydney. So you've been to Sydney. It's not all Harbour Bridge and Opera House, and it's there's places where it's like Dodge City, and that's the part of Sydney that I came from.
So when did you get out of dental school, and tell us about your journey, and tell us more about what you learned along the way?
Well, I finished dental school in 1982, and in 1983, the first job that I had was just filling in for a dentist who had a practice for 2 years. It was very quiet, and he and his wife had decided to go and work in the UK, and so I finished his lease, and then when I finished his lease, I took a job, and the first day that I took the job, my principal was not there, and I waited 2 months for this job to start, and the first day he was not there, and he rings me at the end of the day, and he says, "You never told me you were left-handed." And I said, "Well, you never asked." And he said, "Well, we can't have left-handers. It's cables going here, cords going there. It's just not going to work." And I said, "Well, that's not really fair." He says, "Well, maybe you should have become a vet like you wanted to instead of becoming a dentist." So I was really cranky. I was going to sue this guy, but my dad talked some sense into me. He said, just go get another job, and if you get a job straight away, you can't sue him for much. And so I was lucky. I fell on my feet. I got a job with a dentist who was very busy, had a sore back, and I got to work with him for a while, then look after his practice for 3 months while he was overseas. And I stayed there for 3 years, and I learned a lot about business from him, which was really good. And from then I just got itchy feet, and I was hoping I could buy in there, but he wasn't ready. So I bought an established practice in 1987, start of 1987, in a working class part of town, which wasn't far. It was maybe only 7 miles from this practice, but it was far enough that it was independent of that, and it was good. It was a business centre, but in the western part of Sydney. And so from that, then I had to build that dental practice up, and that's what I did. It started off with me and one dental assistant, one chair that worked, and one chair that was a pump up, which was next to useless. And when I sold the practice in 2007, it was 2 locations, 7 chairs, 2.5 dentists, a couple of specialists, and 7 days of hygiene. It was a big business. So, I was proud to say that I grew that practice very successfully.
And what do you think is the secret to growing a successful practice? Well, first of all, how can they? What's the best way to order this book, The Ultimate Patient Experience?
Well, the best way, you can either get it on Amazon, the Building the Dental Practice of Your Dreams, or you can just go to buildingyourdreampractice.com, and if you order it there, we can give you a couple of bonuses. There's a couple of audio CDs you can download, as well as a PDF of it straight away, so you can be reading it on your phone even before the book arrives. So 2 ways to get it. Just search for it at Amazon or buildingyourdreampractice.com.
And what's the www.theupe.com? UPE stand for Ultimate Patient Experience. Is that still a good place to go? Theupe.com?
Yeah, that's my website, which is really my blog page. Howard, at this stage, it's just I'm just expanding it to a full-blown website where my blog will be. But at the moment, that's my blog page. I blog twice a week. I've been doing that for 2.5 years, so there's 270 blogs there, about 800 or 900 words each. So, I'm very lucky that I can sit down in front of a blank computer, and an hour later I've spat out a blog. Twice a week I do that, around this time of day. So, I tend to feel that when I'm typing, I look like Jack Nicholson in As Good as It Gets. When he was typing, he just gets in the zone and off he goes. So I'm very fortunate. I don't sit down and think, oh, I need to write something, or I don't get inspiration at times and say, I've got to stop and write it. I just open up, at certain times and do it. So that's theupe.com. And
they can find your book there too?
Yeah, they can.
And so what do you like to blog about? Is the same thing about your book?
No, I blog on Tuesday morning my time, which is Monday afternoon your time. I blog about customer service, and on Friday morning my time, Thursday afternoon your time, I blog about the business of dentistry. So there's an overlap, a little overlap, but I try and keep it pretty secular, and only a couple of times in that 2.5 years have I typed out a whole blog and go, oh, wrong, this has ended up going that way, and I meant to be this way, and then have to put it on the shelf for next week. But other than that, I can be pretty good. And sometimes I can be generic, and sometimes I can be specific about dental, and sometimes I can find a customer service or a business tip from outside of dental and just write about that and then tie it back into dentistry at the end. So I wrote one last week about not having any backstage. That you're always on show as a dentist and a business owner, and then just tied it in with and don't go hunting lions either. That was my little tie-in. You've got to, I think you've got to be seen to be by your customer to be a nice person with good habits and hobbies. And I don't know what it's like over there, but the lion and the dentist story's been pretty big down here.
It's huge here. I mean, it's huge everywhere. I mean, if you go on the internet and just type in dentist on Google, it pulls up 25 different newspaper stories about Cecil the lion.
Wow. And And I see the point. I think that there was a story about a female 27-year-old university accountant who shot a giraffe, and nowhere you have to read in the fine print that she's an accountant, but this poor bloke, dentist kills lion. I see the point there, but anyway.
And is it the point that dentists are held to higher standards because we're in healthcare promoting health, and killing anything is kind of like the opposite of health? Do you think? I mean, because you're right. If the lion hunter would have been an engineer or a programmer, it wouldn't have. I don't think they would have said in every headline, "Programmer kills sees the lion," or why do you think they had to mention the career every single time the story came out?
We're just cannon fodder for that sort of stuff. That's just what our profession is. There's a Billy Crystal movie where I forget the name. Him and Richard Pryor, and he dates his wife. His ex-wife is dating a dentist, and the dentist doesn't even appear in the movie, but the dentist cops it. Billy Crystal says, does he play the same music at home as he plays in his office? Just. We just cop it, even though we're not even in the movies. So I like to think of dentistry as being something that I do, not something that I am, and I like to separate that. And so I've enjoyed being a dentist. I only work one day a week as a dentist now, but I really love helping dentists to fine-tune their practices and look at dentistry as a service rather than as a commodity, and that's what really helps them set their practices apart, as I set mine apart.
And how do you do that? How does a dentist listening to this? So you probably got about 7,000 dentists listening to this. Probably 80% of them are in America, commuting an hour-long commute to work. How do they differentiate themselves between nuts, bolts, screws, hammers, and differentiate themselves not as a commodity, which is things that are sold on price? Like when you buy a gallon of gas or a bushel of corn, no one cares where your gas came from, Saudi Arabia, Iran, or Oklahoma or Texas. When you buy a bushel of corn, no one cares if it's from Iowa or North Dakota. They just sell on, they only differentiate on price. And if you have a dental office where you're just part of price, where they're shopping for the lowest this, versus differentiated, how do you differentiate your dental office so they want to go to your office and just not shop around on price?
Well, I guess how I stumbled into it, and it probably took me 20 years to work out what I was doing. I was really concentrating on making sure that at every opportunity we could be seen as being nice people, but nice people doing dentistry, as opposed to dentists trying to be nice. And that's what we looked at. At every opportunity, how can the team, how can every person in the practice really convey that warmth and friendly feeling that you get outside of the dental office, that you get when you meet somebody in the street who you haven't seen for a while, or you meet them at a cocktail party, or you're round at a barbecue, so that the dentistry that they have at your office is secondary to the experience of just visiting friends. But it was about 4 or 5 years ago that I came across a system where the system, I thought, now if I apply that to, it was from outside of dentistry, if I apply that to dentistry, I can fill in the gaps. Because no matter how nice we try to be at different points, there will always be points, unless we look at it as a total system, there will always be places where somebody is accidentally or carelessly letting the team down. And you can be the nicest dentist and have the nicest treatment, but somebody at the front could be being abrasive on the way in. Your hygienist could be saying something that is disappointing the patient and undoing the whole parcel of customer service that you're trying to do. So I looked at the practice of dentistry from the customer's point of view backwards. I turned the dental paradigm on its head and said, every stage, what does the customer see? What do they do? And I call them customers as opposed to patients, because I like to feel that a patient is somebody who's sick, but our dental patients, they're people in health who are coming for maintenance. So calling them your customer is really what they are. They're a paying person. They have rights and privileges because they're paying, and they have expectations. And if we can exceed their expectations on a regular basis throughout their visit and at each visit, then they're going to love coming to us, and they're going to tell their friends. They're going to come more often. They're going to accept the treatment that we suggest and recommend to them, and they're going to come and get it, and they're going to want to come and get it sooner rather than put it off. And it's about stopping the leaks, Howard. It's about stopping the patients slipping out the back door of your practice and saying, I'm seeing 150 new patients a month, but 120 of them are going out the back door. To me, that didn't make business sense.
The Italians say the fish rots from the head down, meaning that you're the dentist. You own the practice. You set the tone of the corporate culture. Do you believe the dentist sets the tone of the corporate culture in the business?
Oh, absolutely. You have to lead by example, and you have to be there before your patients. You have to be the last one leaving. You have to have that owner mentality. But you can't be walking in at 10 after 9 for a 9 o'clock appointment and a waiting room full of patients. Watching you come in, tucking in your shirt, eating your toast as you come in. You can't have that. You've got to be ready to go. You've got to be able to lead. And a lot of dentists don't know how to lead. But the other thing that I've found when we looked at every stage that the patient goes through, Howard, there's about 19 steps that they go through when they just come in for a restorative visit, and about the same for a hygiene visit, and about the same for a consultation. But the dentist in the restorative visit, he does three things. He greets the patient, he treats the patient, and he farewells the patient. So that leaves 16 steps that the rest of the team's doing. Once the patient's finished in the treatment room, there are 6 steps for them to be led from the treatment room to the front door and beyond. And that's 6 steps that are done by other team members. When you lay it down that there's 6 steps before and 6 steps after that team members are doing, they then start to see that they are important in the process, that they're not just there as bit players and backups to the dentist. They're actually laying the foundation, and they're cementing the future of the practice. And when they realise that and the penny drops, and then you teach them that they can then construct the customer service manual for the practice, as opposed to, there are tips in this book or any book that on customer service that you can say, he said to do it this way. That's not how I teach it. I teach them how to build it in their own words. So that Betty at your office, who does the check-ins, designs the check-in process with the consultation of the rest of the team, and then Betty owns it and the team own it, rather than them saying, Dr. David said do it this way. Dr. John can get Betty to do it and design it, and he can use my book as guideline in his mind back. But when Betty owns it, when she builds it, she owns it.
The dentist, though, and I have to admit, I get dentists because I'm a dentist. I mean, I would rather go to a course on bone grafting than customer service, because that's what we are. We're engineers, scientists, mathematician geeks, and we love that stuff. And these dentists, they all think that the secret to the future is to get a CAD cam or to get a laser or to get a CBCT. And you and I know that there's people who have built the most successful dental office in the world that didn't have any of those technologies. So how do you break into the mindset that you're not going to build the perfect dental office just because you traded in a 2D pano for a 3D cone beam technology? You can see practices that have all those technologies that go bankrupt, and you can see dental offices that don't have any of those technologies be wildly successful. How do you get it into the mind that the dentist has to focus on the soft stuff, the people stuff, the customer service stuff, the staff stuff, the stuff they call fluff?
But a lot of dentists don't get it. I look at, and we've all seen it, Howard. We've all seen it. I made the choice after 2 years of dental school. After 2 years of studying dentistry, I got a transfer to medicine. I studied hard. I wanted to be a doctor, and I got a transfer. But I said, no, I want to finish dentistry, and I just want to get out there and and you know, all my friends who didn't go to university, they were already out doing jobs, and I was behind the eight ball. You know, 40 hours a week of dentistry and 30 hours a week working in a registered club, pulling beers and serving drinks. I was working darn hard for hardly any money, and I just wanted to finish it. But some of the best students with great skills had no business idea. They had no business idea at all. And I think for me, I was lucky that the penny dropped early. But some of them never get it. You're right. Even some of my clients, they talk to me about business, and then they say, "Oh, I'm going to do this anterior composite veneer course because I need to improve that." And I'm thinking, that's not, you know, just do porcelain veneers. They're quicker, they're easier, and they look better and they last longer. But you know, some guys like to get into the minutiae of it, and you're right. They think sadly, if they surround themselves with lots of shiny objects, they you know, they're going to be successful and people are going to want to come, or they've got lots of degrees hanging and certificates hanging up that people are going to think they're good. You know, I've done courses where you get nice big shiny black certificates and you hang them on your wall. Nobody ever said anything. They just thought that it was a reason to go to Las Vegas. You know, it did allow me to do things quicker and more efficiently. But the schmoozing and you know, the stuff that I learn, I take stuff from the restaurant industry and apply it to dentistry a lot of the time. And pull it from other industries and see things and say, this is what we need to be doing. But you know, some dentists, they've got no idea. They've got no idea how many new patient inquiry phone calls are converted to appointments in their book. And yet, what's their answer? They think, oh, well, I've got holes in my book. Let's spend more money on marketing. All I need to do is answer the phone better. And that's free money because I've already paid for the ads that are bringing the phone's ringing, but when the phone rings and they pick it up, then the person's already done their homework. They've looked on the web, they've seen them, they want to come in, and then the person who picks it up is incongruous. The message they get on the phone is incongruous to the image they're getting on the web, and yeah, I'll call you back. And it's lost. That's money lost. And it's training on these people skills. I was lucky because I had people walking out of my treatment room loving me and then hating the girl at the front desk. And somebody pointed that out to me. And when we changed her behaviour and then changed her, business just boomed. And we weren't doing anything different down in the treatment room. And I realised that you've got to surround yourself with great people who are people who can do that.
You know, most of the research I've seen shows that when it takes 4 people to want to go to your office for the receptionist to schedule one. And then the dentist will, when they want some more new patients, will go spend more money on advertising instead of trying to convert 2 out of 4 to schedule appointment. What advice would you give? What's the low-hanging fruit advice on answering the phone? And furthermore, on your receptionist, can you train this behavior? Or Southwest Airlines says you hire on attitude and then you train the skill. And dentists look at the resume and say, oh, this person has 10 years experience and skills, so I will hire her. And half the time, and she's got 10 years of horrible attitude. So do you believe that you'd rather have someone with no dental experience but the rocking hot attitude people person and then train them how to do the front desk? Or do you want to find the person that has the 10 years experience and then try to develop them to become a people person and to close more sales and create more appointments?
I think you need the right people with the attitude more than the skills, and that's obvious. And sadly, Howard, you know, and you've seen it, and you've heard stories where dental employees start as dental assistants, and then they say, I've had enough of being a dental assistant. I think I'm ready for the front desk. So it's a graduation from a boredom at the back to a boredom at the front. And sadly, in dentistry, working at the front is very unsupervised. So it does attract people who like to work unsupervised because they don't have many standards or hoops to jump through. The person who owns the business is the one spinning the wheels down the back with his head down somebody's mouth. He doesn't have time to train. So it can attract people who are underperformers, who like to stay as underperformers. It's easy to learn the skills. Back to your first question, the question that we get down here is, when somebody rings up, the first question they usually ask is, how much for a clean? Or how much for a crown? In the US, the first question that is asked is, do you take my insurance? Do you take XYZ? Do you take Delta? Do you take this? And the girl answering the phone misses what the true question is. Down here, when they say, how much for a clean, they're not asking the price. They're saying, it's time for me to get a clean. I need a clean. Can you book me in? Are you a nice person? But they're missing that message. When they ring up in America and say, do you take my insurance? The first question they should ask back is, oh, you have a dental problem. What is it? How can I help you? And just get off the insurance, get onto the problem, solve their problem, and then they'll make the appointment because you've been a problem solver. But you're right. I think it's even 1 in 5. And why do 1 in 5 only make the appointment? It's because they get a number thrown at them. They get a number thrown at them that the girl on the phone hopes might be the right number, but it never is. And then you're talking price and commodity again.
Yeah, and look, and I'll flip that on Dennis. Like, if I asked you, like, well, how much is a prostate exam, and you said a number. I mean, the patient didn't know what a root canal cost or a prostate exam. So even when you said the number, they don't even have anything to benchmark it on. I mean, it's not like you're buying a gallon of milk or a loaf of bread or a liter of gasoline. I mean, it's just you're right. They don't know what else to say. They're calling a dentist. They need their teeth cleaned. And so what do you recommend? Do you recommend trying to explain this to your receptionist? I've known a lot of offices where they read your book together. Our office does that, where everybody in the office will have a book project, and we'll say, okay, we're all going to read this in August, and then we're going to get together and talk about it. Do you recommend that the whole office read your book together, kind of like a Oprah Winfrey Book of the Month Club?
I think my book is easily readable, and I've had a lot of people buy multiple copies for their team as well. I've also had the biggest number of sales. I had an accountant in California bought 100 copies of my book to deliver to his dentist clients. It's quite bizarre, but in a dental office, it's an easily readable book. When I do my day trainings, I spend 90 minutes talking about how to answer the shopper call, and I say it's not a shopper. And if I hear somebody in a dental office saying that was a shopper, they're not a shopper. They're a person with a dental need that we have yet to convince that our practice is the practice for them. The only reason they ask the price is they have no other point of reference, and that's what we have to do. So we have to hear the real question. The real question isn't how much, or the real question is, do you take my insurance? The real question is, I have a problem, and you can get onto it. When somebody rings up and says how much down here, the first question we ask is, when were you last in? Well, they never go back and say, no, I just want to know the price. They start giving us they say, I've never been there before. And then we say, well, which one of our valued customers, our valued patients recommended us to you? And they don't say, no, tell me the price. They say, no, it wasn't one of your patients. I saw you on the internet. I Googled you. And all of a sudden we've got them off the price question, and we're starting to talk about them and the dental issue. And 2 minutes into it, they've forgotten the price. And when they come back to the price, if it is, look, I really got to know how much is a crown. Then we simply say, can I ask you, it's a very good question. Can I just ask you this? Do you want a crown that's going to last a short time or a long time? And nobody says, I want one that's going to last a short time. And guess what? Crown that lasts a short time, crown that lasts a long time. That implies there are different prices. And straight away they've admitted that they want quality over price, and we've got them off that. And then we just say, look, can I ask you, how many other offices have you rung, and have anybody been able to help you? And if they have rung other offices, the answer we know is, I've rung some and nobody's been able to help me, and you've spent more time with me than anybody else. And then we just say, well, let's do this. Why don't you just come down? We can have a quick look, see what needs to be done, and then you know exactly what needs to be done, and we can take it from there. Does that make sense? So we've got them off the price question. And they already love us because we've got a nice person answering the phone who cares about them, not somebody who sees the phone as an interruption and slams it down and says shopper and gets back to filing insurance or filing their nails. We've got somebody who really cares about it, and that's what you've got to have at your dental office. You've got to, the receptionist is the face of your practice.
David, why do you think dentists focus far more on marketing, trying to get more new patients, instead of focusing on retention, trying to keep their existing clientele and service the existing people better, regular, which is far more easier and lucrative and ideal. Why do you think they focus on just, I'm going to build my practice with a gazillion new patients, regardless of the fact that almost all of them are going out the back door?
Well, it's a churn factor, Howard. They don't know any different, and they just feel that the more people they see, the more chance they've got of somebody accepting treatment. Whereas when you do need new patients, but when times get tough and new patient numbers drop, when you've got your regulars who come in and they trust you implicitly, and you're doing the dentistry and you've been watching these big fillings, and it's time to do something about it, or heaven forbid, a restoration breaks. I love it when regular patients come in, and one chap said to me, last year, he said, "I thought you'd crowned every tooth in my head." He said, "But I've broken another one." And I looked at it and I said, "You need a crown." And they diagnose themselves. And they don't mind. They're the people that you love treating. The people that you take their mouth from unhealthy or old patch-ups to healthy inlays, onlays, and full coverage crowns. They love it. They say, I never thought my mouth would ever feel like this, and it just feels so much better. And they become evangelists for you. And on your American Express card it says member since 1984. How many dentists say to their patients, "Thank you for being a patient since 1984"? Simple little stuff like that. We know it. We've got it on our computer. We know these things, but we don't say them. We just take it for granted.
And the other thing that just upsets me is that why doesn't the dental office software create a family tree that you're David, you were referred by Lisa, who was referred by Amy, who was referred, and then be able to trace it back to this one lady when I opened up in 1987 is now responsible for a tree of 220 patients that are still getting there. How come we don't even, but we'll track that it was a DO and the insurance was billed and they paid this portion, and they'll track almost everything that doesn't matter and everything that's real, and then I want to know that doesn't even track. I mean, there should be a family tree on. I know patients in my office that are responsible for, one person might be responsible for 1% of my entire practice. And
I totally agree. Some of the best referrers I've had have been people that we made full dentures for, and you get front office people say, well, we'll file them as inactive because they're not coming to see us anymore, so they don't get Christmas cards, birthday cards, or newsletters, and yet they've been our greatest source of referral, and they refer people who need full mouth reconstruction. But you're right about the family tree. I did a full mouth reconstruction on a chap with implants and a whole pile of stuff, and he was referred by a woman who came and saw me about 3 or 4 times, and she was referred by somebody I played golf with who was never even my patient. And I bet the golf guy didn't know that a $60,000 case walked in as a result of him, second generation.
So I'm gonna ask you 4 questions in a row, and it's all about your title. Why did you call it the Big Yellow Book? Number 2, how do you build the dental practice of your dreams? And what do you mean by saying without killing yourself? And then lastly, how can you do it in less than 60 days? So there's 4 questions for you. Can you remember all those in a row?
What was the first one? Why did
you call it the Big Yellow Book?
Well, I chose the color yellow because I wanted the color of the cover to stand out. And when I look along my bookcases, the color of the spines that stand out are yellow. And so when I put it up for a design on 99 Designs, I put 7 yellow versions up and 1 blue one. And darn it, I sweated on it for 5 days because a blue one was like up there second. It finished third, thank goodness. But I really wanted it to be yellow. But it still didn't have the name, the Big Yellow Book. It was my wife who just one day just said, this Big Yellow Book's doing great. And I thought, there's a name. And of course, it was available on Facebook. So it's got its own Facebook page, the Big Yellow Book, so they can go there and find it on Facebook. And it's not really that big. It's only 130, 140 pages, so it's not that thick. But when it got that name, Michael Barr, who he photoshopped it into a picture, and the Pope's holding it, and it really became its own character. It's Les Mis and
so I want to take my picture with it next week. I want to be holding the big yellow book. What should the prop be? Should it be the bridge, the Opera House? That would be too easy. What should our prop be next Monday?
Well, we can make it the Opera House. We can make it the bridge. We can take you out to icebergs at Bondi and have Bondi Beach there. It's easy. It's easy.
And how do you make the claim? I mean, why was it important enough to add on to the title without killing yourself? Is that one of the secrets of how to build the dental practice of your dreams without killing yourself? Is that tie into working smarter, not harder? Or what do you mean by that, without killing yourself?
It's without burning yourself out, Howard. That's people think that to be successful, you've got to work like 70, 80 hours a week, 90 hours a week, and just work so hard. But if you work smarter, not harder, then you don't burn yourself out. I've been a dentist for 32 years, but I've always tried, and I've spent a lot of time on the business of dentistry as well as the drilling and filling of dentistry. But I've done things I've always taken the time out to make sure that I travel, I play my golf, I eat nice, and recreation. It's important not to just be a walking, talking dental encyclopedia for 168 hours a week. So you can do it without stress and without the burnout.
And do you think that when the dentist is looking for support and you see the successful dentist, do you think the most successful dentists are getting that support from their spouse, or is it an office manager, or is it really neither?
It's having a great spouse is very important, and my journey. I think in my book I mentioned that having a very supportive spouse to directional changes along the way in my career in dentistry has been fantastic, and you'll get to meet my wife next Monday when we meet in Sydney, and she's a great story on her own. She did not have a dental background. She was a teacher and then a parent, and then when as our children got older, she took a parents and citizens job at the school. I said, "What are you doing that for?" I said, "With your personality, you're the perfect person to come and work in my office. Come and write a newsletter." Well, she went from writing the newsletter to being the most successful person on the phone that I know. She loved making appointments for people. The patients absolutely loved her, and she also loved collecting and scheduling and making people keep appointments, and she became really, really good at it. So that having a supportive wife, or spouse, having a supportive team is good. But a lot of dentists don't even have the support. I found that in my year, I don't even keep in touch with. I get in touch with maybe one or two people from my year, but I sought out other successful dentists who are slightly older or slightly younger than me. And you know what it's like, Howard, that you start to see the same successful people at the meetings, at the continuing ed, in your area, nationally as well. And the cream rises to the top and the cream sticks together. So with that, I was very fortunate that I started masterminding in 2007 in Chicago. And I was able to meet, successful dentists from the US meeting in Chicago 4 times a year. And that really piqued my interest as to why were these guys different, and when the synergy that happens when you get successful dentists together really, really works. And it reminded me that you can't do it all on your own. You either need masterminding or you need coaching. And part of the success of my business, it's in my book. The first coach that I hired, after 6 months of working with him, he was a friend of mine, and then I found that he was working as a dentist 900 yards down the road. Well, I didn't just say all coaches are bad. I found another coach, and in that 6.5 years that I worked with them, my business tripled, my collections tripled. And it was because we restructured and we looked at the customer service side of things. So to be successful, you can't just do it on your own. You've got to surround yourself with other successful people. Take advice, look for advice, and act on that advice.
I think it's funny when people have these one-liners for like entire races or sexist. They'll say, like, having your wife work in the office, that's a bad idea. And I'm like, really? So 2 million dentists, all their spouses they're all the same. I mean, I'm 100% Irish. Is that like saying all Irish love whiskey? I mean, so having a wife or a spouse, whether it be your husband, work in the office, I've seen it be the best thing the dentist ever did, and I've seen it be the biggest nightmare the dentist ever did. What other build, when you said build the practice of your dreams in less than 60 days, where did 60 days come from as opposed to 30 days, 90 days, a year? Can you really start becoming more successful in 60 days?
I think once you turn the corner, once you make the decision, you can put the principles of what you want to do in place and have them as habits, and you can also throw out bad habits. They say it takes 21 days to create a habit and 21 days to break a habit. 60 days just rolled off the tongue easily, and you're right. It's like the 7-minute abs, then the 6-minute abs, then the 5-minute abs.
The movie Something About Mary. That was so hilarious. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, that's it. So somebody's going to bring this book out and say they're going to do it in 45 days. You can create you can turn the direction of your practice around, and you can also set your practice up the right way. In the book I said when I bought my practice in 1987 from this dentist who was just him and one girl working in his office, and he said to me, set this practice up how you want it from day one. He said the fees are good, but if you want to put them up, start putting them up gradually. Don't put them up all at once, but just work it gradually until you get them comfortable. But he said, but if you're going to work this practice and you want to take time off, he said, don't start working 5.5, 6 days a week because you can never cut it back. You should take your day off during the week. And he was taking the Wednesday off. In the US, dentists take Friday off. In Australia, they take Wednesday off. And I'd come from a job where I was not working Wednesday. So I just kept it at that. And I think you can set the direction of your practice in 60 days, and anything new that you want to implement in your practice, you can have it up and implemented by your team, by you, in 60 days. So that's where the 60 days comes from.
So I want you to go into what do you talk about the part I love, creating the ultimate dental handover, where patients leave the practice with total clarity on what is clearly the next step. Talk about that.
That's the backbone to a successful practice, Howard, because patients that leave our practice that are confused, they make an appointment but they don't know why they've made it, they've not been told what they're going to have done next time clearly, it's not hurting, why do I need it done? They're not told what will happen if they don't get it done. They're not told the urgency of why it needs to be done then, and instead of waiting till it breaks. Those people cancel their appointments. They make appointments and they cancel them, or they make appointments, they don't turn up, or they say, look, I've got to think about it, and that's what creates the issue. If we don't have patients with total clarity, patients that are leaving confused, I don't care how good your front office people are with their phone skills, they can't. It's so much more difficult to turn those people around when they want to cancel, or when they fail to show, and you've got to reactivate them and get out your tickler file. If you've got the handover happening properly, and the handover has to be as many handovers as you can. The more somebody hears something, the more they believe it. So I'm a firm believer that when the dentist brings the patient out to the front desk, he hasn't said anything to the patient, and then he just says it at the front desk, and then he's got to rush back down the back, and the patient doesn't get the message. But if the dentist tells the patient during the appointment, he tells the patient at the end of the appointment, he hands it over to his dental assistant, Kate, and then Kate understands it all, and Kate feeds it back in case he misses something. When do you want this patient to come back, Dr. Moffet? And then Kate takes the patient out the front, and then Kate says exactly what the dentist has said to the receptionist in front of the patient. Guess what? The patient's heard it 3 or 4 times. They're starting to believe it. They understand it. And if it's choreographed perfectly, that these people in your office are engaging with the patient on all these handovers, the patient feels a part of it. Traditionally, the patient just comes out and they feel like the school kid who's been dragged by the teacher up to the principal's office. Stand over there while I tell the principal what you did, and then you can talk when I'm finished. That's what a traditional dental handover is. No wonder those people cancel their appointments. If we concentrate on these 10 things that we need to concentrate, what did we do today? How many teeth? How many surfaces? What did we do today? What are your expectations after today in terms of comfort and pain? What are we going to do next time? Why do we have to do it? What will happen if we don't do it? How long appointment do we need? How soon can we get it? And can you come in sooner if something comes up? If we get those 5 things, I think I hit about 10 fingers, but if we get those top 5 things in place, that's perfect for setting it up. Then we switch to a few customer service things. Thank them for how great a patient they were. Thank them for being such a wonderful patient this time. Talk about something that they mentioned. Talk about something that they're going to be doing in the future and wish them good health. They love it. But most dentists, what are they doing? They don't even know when their next patient's appointment is. They've got their head in their computer. The patient's been checked out. And they're trying to do a handover and somebody's clicking hand pieces off and there's all this background noise. You've got to set it up right.
You're so right. And I also love the fact that what happens if you don't do it? Like people, one of the most common reasons people come to my office for a second opinion is because they went to an office, they just want to get their teeth cleaned. And then the doctor said they needed a deep cleaning and they thought it was a scam, or they didn't believe it or trust us, so they thought they were just trying to get more money, so they come to our office for cleaning. And, we take the time, we explain to them, but you got to tell them, well, in the United States, by age 64, 10% of Americans have 0 teeth, not one tooth in their head. I also like when I tell them, when they come in for a toothache and need an emergency root canal, billet, and crown, I always stop and say, okay, well, that's $2,500, but you have 8 other cavities, and each one of those cavities is $250. I'd rather you spend $2,000 and we fix these 8 cavities at $250 each, and it'll be $500 less, and we'll just use that to pull this one. And they're like, oh, I don't want to get a tooth pulled. And I say, well, do you realize every single one of these cavities is going to turn into a $2,500 root canal, billet, and crown? I mean, when you tell a person, yeah, you have 2 cavities, and I really want to do them now because I don't want you to come in and we have to spend $2,500 for each one of them for root canal, buildup, and crown. We really need to get your teeth cleaned every 3 months because I really don't want you to need a denture like 10% of all Americans at age 64. I mean, they don't talk about what if. They just say, oh, you need an MO on 3 and a DO on 4. And they don't even know what that means.
Exactly, Howard. And in dental school, we're trained to do dentistry and believe that as long as it's fine and perfect in the treatment room, that it's going to last forever. We're taught that these beautiful, wonderful, in my day and your day, amalgams and then now composite build-ups are going to last forever. Everything's fine. It's a hostile environment in there. People are going to smash all sorts of stuff. They're going to put stuff in there. They're going to put all chemicals in there and they're going to beat themselves up in there. And we've got to look at, I like to do it like you. I like to say, I could do that. Can you do it inexpensively? I can do it, but then you're going to lose this tooth. If we fix it right now, you've got more tooth there to work with. It's going to be cheaper, and you're going to get more life out of the tooth. But then, like you said, there's other times when you say, look, if I do that, I'm going to be stealing from you. I can do nothing to save this tooth. This is what we need to do. And they like that. You're absolutely right. They love that honesty. And I think part of that honesty you mentioned about, they go to the dentist and the dentist says you need a deep cleaning and they've got to come back. If you get the person answering the phone correctly on the front office and asking that question, how long since you've been to the dentist, and they say they haven't been in for a year, and we say, well, we try and do it in one visit, but sometimes people who haven't been in for a year, they're going to need 2 or 3 visits to clean their teeth. Then they're prepared for the dentist to say that. But a lot of, when I left my practice after selling it 7 years ago and then working there for 7 years, and I started working near home here, the girls in this office that I started working with, they were just putting names in slots. And they say, you got a new patient. I say, well, they haven't. They said, they need a clean. And I say, how long since they had a last clean? I don't know. I said, well, can you tell me about this patient? Oh, he walked in. He's made an appointment for the middle of the day. Does that mean he's on holiday? He's on leave? He's taking a day off? He works shift work? Do we know any of that? No, I didn't ask that. Well, why don't they ask that? So then I understand. The patient feels like there's some engagement with them before they come in. Instead, I'm the one who has to do it. I'm not being paid to drill. I'm being paid to talk. And there's people who can talk in my office for a lot lower hourly rate not talking. That's what frustrates me too. Everybody can be their friend. It doesn't have to be me.
What do you mean? Talk about work with the team on capturing important Secret Service information about the patient for future use. Secret Service, is that from the CIA and the KGB?
Well, one of my mentors used it, using information that the Secret Service is using information that the patient or the customer in the business is unaware that they're providing, or their systems that you have that the customers are unaware of. So, the advice I got, came from John DeJulius. He's also one of the people on the back cover, along with you, who gave a testimonial for the book. In his salons, new clients were given white capes and existing clients were given black capes. Well, the client doesn't know. No, they just use black and white capes. But the team then say, new client, white cape. So they treat that person differently. They give them a little bit of extra attention. So there's a Secret Service system. Collecting data, patients love it when somebody, they tell the story to the hygienist, and then the next time they come back in, the dentist says, oh, you were telling the hygienist last time that you've just been on a trip. Well, the patient loves it that all of a sudden they're more than just a set of teeth and a credit card, but they're actually a person and we're interested in what they do. So collecting that information and sharing that information. So the whole purpose of the huddle is not really to talk about what we're going to be doing. We're assuming that we know what we're doing. The purpose of the huddle is to share personal information about people. So, don't ask this lady if she's married because her husband's been dead 7 years and she'll burst into tears because she loves him and misses him dearly after being married for so long. Sharing that sort of information so that people are prepared, and that's what Secret Service information. People love thinking that they're the most important. I always encourage my staff to talk to the patient about their favourite subject. And what's their favourite subject? It's themselves. So don't talk about the weather. Don't talk about how fast the year's going or how slow the year's going. The world's, as far as I understand, Howard, the Earth does not speed up and then slow down as it moves around the sun, depending on Christmas. It just moves at the same speed. So a week, an hour, a year is always the same. So get off that topic. If the patient says, I can't believe how fast the year's going, say, sounds like you've been busy. Tell me more about that. And get onto what they've been doing, not getting on to talking about, the hands of the clock. Don't talk about the rain. Talk about what the rain is doing to them. It's stopping them from playing golf. It's stopping them from going to a wedding outdoors. It's stopping them from going on a trip. Find out about the patient. Get onto their agenda. But then share that information back with your doctors, with your team, with your receptionist. Even when the dental assistant takes the patient out to the front, they can leave a little note so that after the patient has made that appointment, the receptionist can say, oh, I see also that you're going on a trip soon. Bingo. Patients love that.
So talk more about how to teach a team. You call it teach a team about service recovery, customer experiences, and really going above and beyond makes so much of a difference.
Well, service recovery is simple. I think it's atrocious. It must be so frustrating for patients, for anybody in any business, where when something goes wrong, they say, I got to check with my manager. I got to check with my dentist. Let me check with my dentist. Or patient chips a piece of porcelain off a crown, and what do? We say, and let me check with the lab and see if they'll cover it. No, just do it. Just replace it. There's more. Patients will sometimes feel that the service recovery is better than the actual event that they came for. Classic example. The people who order this from down under, I send them out myself. I sign them, I wrap them, I send them out myself, and they're personally autographed. Well, I get this dentist sends me an email, Murray, and he sends me an email and he says, you sent me my book, thank you very much, but you signed it and I wanted to give it as a gift. And he gives me his phone number, so I'm on the phone to him straight away as soon as I get the email, and he said, I'll send it back. I said, Murray, it might be another year before another Murray buys my book. I said, just keep it. And I said, but I actually checked your order, and you ordered 2, and I only sent you 1. And he said, yeah. He said, I just thought the second one was coming. I said, no, that's my mistake too. So 2 books individually wrapped, unsigned, in the post to him. He gets them the next day, and he straight onto Facebook, onto the Ultimate Patient Experience Facebook page, gives me a 5-star review and says, you walk the talk, I'm sold. You know, you live it. And so the service recovery was better than him actually getting the first book. He got schmoozed. So how can we do that? How can we look at, and when I talk to dental teams, and we look at what we must do, but we also look at what we must not do. And when we look at the must not do's, then we work out what will happen if this happens. You know, what happens if a patient turns up, Howard? What happens if they turn up? Oh, I haven't got it, my old practice card. What happens if they turn up and they've got your dental receptionist's handwriting there? They're there for the appointment, they're not in the computer. What do we do? Do we have a system that if we can see them, we can see them, but if we can't, do we have flowers waiting at their home? Do they have to go and ask the doctor and say, what can we do? Or do they just order the flowers? Can I order you a taxi home? Can we do something to, can we pop a lottery ticket in the post so the next day they say, look, I'm sorry you turned up at the dentist. We're lucky to have people like you. Hope that luck rubs off. Scratch this. Let us know if you win anything. I hope you do. No, we never think of that, but that's a system. Bang, it's gone. Have your team allowed to do that? That's service recovery. What were the other things you asked me?
Customer experiences really going above and beyond, how that makes so much of a difference. I think that's what you've been talking about. Again,
that's at the other end of the spectrum. So we train teams to work out what do we do in our dental office that every dentist does? What do we do that no other dentist does? And then where are our above and beyond moments and opportunities? Where can we do things that they're not going to expect? A patient might be reading a magazine in the dentist's office. Traditionally, what's the magazine got? It's got a sticker on the magazine which says, this is the property of Dr. XYZ's dental practice. What that sticker says is, do not steal our magazines. So the patient's reading the magazine and you say, oh, are you finished? Is there something there that you're interested in? And they go, yeah, I'm enjoying this article. We say, take the magazine. We give them the magazine. Well, other practices will say, let me make a copy of that. And so they squeeze it onto the copier. And
David, I want to ask you an interesting question because you're in Australia and probably 80% of my viewers listening to this are Americans. What do you think what is there? You're a worldly man. Explain how Australia dental market is, where if you're practicing in Germany or United States or Canada, you might not know. Are there any little fine differences and details of how a dental office runs there as opposed to Toronto or America or England or Germany or where have you?
Pretty much the same, Howard. I have clients, I consult with clients in Australia, and I also consult with clients in the US and Canada. And dentistry is pretty much the same. The biggest difference in the US as opposed to Canada and Australia is the influence of employer-paid insurance on the dental landscape. That's about it. And the fact that there's more dentists in America than there are Starbucks. One on every corner. But other than that, dentistry, the provision of dentistry is pretty much the same. And so when I started masterminding in the US in 2007, I thought if it can work, if what these guys are talking about can work in a highly populated dental environment in the US, then it's got to work down in Australia. The marketing tips, the service tips. So it's pretty much the same. So I'm excited. Next month I've got to do a trip to. I've got a customer service summit to go to. I'm going to be doing a 2-day workshop in Vegas, and I'm going to visit 2 of my clients, one in Edmonton, Canada, and one in Denver, Colorado, on the way. So,
you're doing a 2-day seminar in Vegas?
Yeah, 25th and the 26th.
Is that is that one your own seminar that you put on, or are you lecturing for someone else, or is this your event?
I'm just putting it on as my own event, and I'm putting it on at Implant Direct at their facility there, and it's basically a workshop, an in-depth workshop into how to build the ultimate patient experience in your practice, building the 5 building blocks, the ultimate connection, the ultimate arrival, the ultimate pre-appointment, the ultimate appointment, and the ultimate post-appointment. They're the coloured dots, the 5 different coloured dots that make up the the patient cycles, and I'm going to go through the ultimate handover in detail, and how to handle the shopper call, because it's not a shopper call. I hate that term. When I hear that term, it's telling me that somebody needs a new job. That's the person who told me that it was a shopper call. But it's going to be very in depth. I think it's 25th, 26th of September, and I'll have information out very shortly on that. So again, if they go to theupe.com, they'll find out the information there on my blogs for sure.
And our listeners, can they look forward to one day you creating a Dentaltown online continuing education course on this?
Yeah, Howard, thank you so much. It's an idea that I think has a lot of merit, and I'm sure from the material that I've got, there is enough for a Dentaltown online course. Absolutely. I think we now are at 530 courses, and we passed 550,000 views. So it's a huge hit in the United States. They love to sit there in their couch on their iPad and take an hour course, as opposed to going to, say, a study club on the last Tuesday of every month, where they have to drive an hour across town, listen to someone talk for an hour, and then drive an hour back. You know what I mean? Yes.
It's been wildly successful. But we are out of time. We are at 1 hour and 1 minute. But I just want to say, seriously, huge fan of you, huge fan of your book, and I can't believe I get to have dinner with you a week from today, and I look so forward to seeing you. Thank you for all that you've done for dentistry. Thank you for writing your book, and I can't wait to see you.
Thanks for having me on your show, Howard, and look forward to shaking your hand and enjoying some of Australia's food and drink with you next week.
And I'm going to bring my brother Paul, because he needs a dentist down there. He's been down there a year. He's looking for a home. You'll have to help him with the dental home. He moved from Kansas to Sydney, and when everybody asks him, well, when are you coming back? He's always like, you can't. You can move from Kansas to Sydney, but you can't really move from Sydney back to Kansas. That's kind of a one-way street. You can't. There's no turning around once you've made that move. He just absolutely loves it. And I have to say, I've lectured in 50 dental countries, and that is the hardest country to go back to your airplane and fly home, because you're asking yourself why the whole time. I mean, in Sydney, you don't need a car. It's just all there, the public transportation, the trains, the planes. I mean, it's got to be the coolest city in the world.
Well, I love it. And when people say they want to come down and visit, I say, just buy a one-way ticket. You won't want to go home.
I know. And you know how, yeah, okay. Well, I'll see you next week.
Thanks, Howard. Been great. Thank you so much.
All right, bye-bye.